Want to say good morning to everyone. Welcome to the Town of Hilton Head Island Gullah Geechee Land and Cultural Preservation Task Force meeting. This is May the 3rd, 2021. This meeting is being broadcast on the town's public meeting Facebook page. And so I want to welcome the public who are joining us. And I did see that Councilman Harkins is also joining us from Town Council, and also Councilman Brown. Didn't see any of the other council members, but welcome all of those. Welcome to my task force. Good morning. Hope everyone's doing well. And Dr. DeBose, are we in compliance with FOIA?
Yes, sir.
Okay, could you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Stevens,
I'm here.
Ms. Biddy,
Here.
Mr. Theodore,
Here.
Ms. Wright, Mr. Abdul Malik,
Here.
Miss Davis.
You told me she would not be able to make it this morning.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Simmons.
He's traveling. He said he might try to join us from where he is on the road.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Green.
Here.
And Ms. White.
She has another meeting and will try to join us a little bit later as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we do have an agenda that's set before us, and I need a motion to approve the agenda if there are no changes. Thank you, Ms. McVitie, and I have a second from Mr. Theodore. Could you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Stevens,
Approved.
Ms. McVitie,
Approved.
Mr. Theodore,
Approved.
Mr. Abdul Malik,
Approved.
Ms. Green.
Approved.
Okay.
Okay. Caroline, I believe you have another line open. Is that where the feedback is coming from?
Let me try to find it.
Ms. McVitie, if you could just try to mute only one of your devices, that would help you.
Is that better?
You still have a line.
Yeah.
Maybe try to mute the computer and leave the phone up.
I'm not sure what's happening.
You need to try muting your computer and leaving the phone, or you'll probably have to close one of the lines off. Like hang up from one of the lines.
Oh, okay.
We'll continue as
He tries to fix that. Okay. We do have the minutes from the April 5th meeting. And
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I don't think we got through the roll for the agenda.
I thought we did.
I'm sorry, go ahead and continue.
So the agenda was approved. The minutes from the April 5th meeting, if there are no changes or observations, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the April 5th meeting.
I move.
Thank you. And is there a second? Mr. Theodore seconds. Okay, can we call the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Stevens,
Approved.
Ms. McVitie. Okay, she's probably still working through. Mr. Theodore,
Approve.
Mr. Abdul Malik,
Approve.
and Ms. Green.
Approved.
We have to wait for Ms. McVitie to get back on to get a quorum for that to go through.
Okay.
Okay,
Can we continue and come back to that?
yes, we can.
Okay. Excuse me, the next item we have on our agenda is citizen comments.
Yes, sir. Public comments concerning the agenda items were to be submitted electronically via the town's open town portal or portal. There were no comments of record. In addition to commenting on the portal, citizens were provided with the option to sign up for public comment participation by phone during the meeting. There were no callers. The open town hall portal closed at 4:30 on Friday, April 30th, 2021, and sign up for the public comment period at noon on Friday, April 30th, 2021.
Okay, thank you. I see that we have Ms. McVitie back on. Can we go back and approve the minutes from the April 5th meeting? Ms. McVitie, are you able to?
Approved.
Okay,
Can you hear me? Approved.
that's better. So the minutes are approved from the April 5th meeting. The next item that we have on our agenda is the status of the fire hydrant expansion program. I want to say hello, welcome, and thank you to Chief Brad Tadlock, Fire Chief, and also to Pete Nardi, the General Manager from the Hilton Head Public Service District. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here, and it's been a while, and appreciate your work. And I would turn this over to you if you want to give us an update or let us know how things are going.
Well, I'll start off this morning. Good morning, everyone. And I would say that even during the past year, we continued to make progress, although it did slow a little bit with the pandemic, as most things did. But we're still working with the PSD. We have 4 hydrants that I think Pete will talk about in a few minutes that we're working on to finish up this year. And we've looked ahead to the future a little bit. I'm glad to say that we've made a lot of progress since 2018 and 19 when we entered into this agreement. And Pete may have to correct me on the actual numbers, but I believe we're up. If we are able to get the 4 that are still pending, we'll be close to 16 or 18 in the total project. Pete can verify my number. I don't have it in front of me. I apologize. And, we're looking more closely as structures go up on various properties to evaluate the need, and along with, access and addressing and some other things that come along with structures and home sites being added. So, like I said, I think we've made great progress. We're still out there. The council has allocated in the upcoming budget another $50,000 to match the PSD. So we're looking forward to next year with the funding. We don't have any specific projects for next budget year outlined at this time, but we'll continue to look at that. And that's kind of my brief update. Like I said, I'm proud of the program. I think we've done some good out there to increase the fire hydrants in the community. And if you can either ask me some questions or I'll turn it over to Pete, let him give you a kind of a summary of where we're at from his perspective.
Okay, why don't we let Pete, he may be able to answer some questions before we ask. And I know Pete Nardi knows everything about everything. So thank you, Pete.
I appreciate that intro, Levon. So as Chief was saying, for this current fiscal year, there were 4 hydrants targeted. What we're doing right now is 2 of the hydrants, no, really all the projects, but the 2 that were highest priority, involve the PSD having to cross a state secondary highway. We have to make a water main upgrade, and in doing so, cross the state secondary highway. When you do that, you get into DOT requirements, and some of the requirements that came initially out of the box, we wanted to take another look at and see if there was a different approach. So we think we've been successful in doing that. And what we're doing now is you have to put your drawings together, your engineering together to go to the DOT with your project. And so right now we're finishing up the drawings for the 2 top priority hydrants and seek our encroachment permit from the DOT in order to do the construction. If that goes as we hope, we should be in construction on those this summer. I'm hoping for like early this summer. And depending on how those go, I think probably the 2 that were remaining, it could be 2 or 3 that were remaining from this fiscal year, will probably carry over into the next one. But as far as I know, and the chief can correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I think we've kind of we're looking at essentially the last 4 projects in this PSD service area under this program. So hopefully, you're looking at within 2022 to wrap that up completely. And we're in the same boat as the town. We've allocated another $50,000 in our CIP budget for FY22. We're on a July 1 fiscal year, just like the town. We've allocated another $50K for these projects. One other thing I'll let the committee know, the task force, I'm sorry. The PSD, late March, we sent a letter to the town council requesting money for fire hydrants under what's called the Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund. And our understanding is this is federal monies that may be coming directly to the town. Our understanding is that these monies can be transferred to special purpose districts like the PSD, and they can be used for water and sewer infrastructure. So it's going to be a question of when the town gets that kind of funding, what it decides to prioritize with it. But we gave a letter to town council dated March 29th, formally making a request that it put that money toward hydrants. So we'll see where that goes. I've also made that same request of the county council, because these monies, this Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund monies, are also, our understanding, they're also going to be coming to the county, and the same opportunity is there. It can be transferred to a special purpose district. It can be used for water and sewer. So it's all kind of a new world for everybody in terms of, I think the town and the county, they're still getting guidance as to when this money will come, what they have to do with it, how they have to account for it, et cetera. But one of the things that's our understanding about it is it has to be spent on projects that can be completed by the end of 2024, calendar year 2024. So these kind of projects would fit very nicely into that kind of requirement, we think. Not that our municipality and our county don't, I'm sure, have other needs as well, but with it being eligible for water and sewer, we like to get our request in early, so we've done that. But that's where we're at with the program. I guess I showed 10 that have been completed to date under this joint program. So you would have 14 total.
Okay, that may have been where I got my number, that we were approaching 14 or 15 with what we had outlined.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Pete.
Yep.
I appreciate your work, and it sounds good. I guess we should go through the roll to see if any of our task force members have questions or comments. I'll go ahead and start with Ms. McVitie.
So am I to understand that 14 is the total number that we have projected? Yes?
At
Okay.
this time, yes.
All right.
At this time, I'll just to give you a little background, as a permit or an application comes in to add a structure on land, that is also, and it's the primary means that triggers us to evaluate that area, not only for fire hydrant, but as I mentioned earlier, also related to the addressing and related to the access for emergency response. So right now, that's where we're at. But as new permits come in, that could prompt us to say, hey, here's another area, because we just can't predict in certain lots how many homes are going to be added and how far they'll be from the road and things like that. So it's triggered by the permitting process, application process.
Okay, my question is, so in the historic neighborhoods, the total we have projected is 14?
Yes, and that 14 was based on getting the existing structures that were more than 1,000
Right.
feet from a hydrant under 1,000 feet.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Mr. Theodore.
Yeah, Ms. McVitie had the same question I had. I guess what you're saying is after you meet the 14 that have been identified, there's no more deficiencies until new development comes along or something like that that identifies voids in the separation from the fire hydrants?
Well, I would say we'll go back and look at where we once we get the priority list was to get those existing under 1,000.
Yeah.
Now, I'd say as part of the ongoing program, we'll continue to look at those areas that are between the 600 and 1,000 foot, and maybe address some of those as we can, based on the funding and what other obstacles, as you heard Pete say, he runs into some challenges sometimes, and see what we can continue to do. But the priority was, to get those the existing homes under 1,000. So we're getting close to that goal is how I would phrase it. And then we'll continue to evaluate the program and make recommendations up to the town manager and the council on what we should do.
Okay. So what you're saying is, in addition to sort of this priority that's been set now at 1,000 feet, eventually you may look at it with 600 feet or closer distance.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. That was it. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Malik.
Yes, good morning, everyone. The grant that you have sent a letter in for, was there a dollar amount attached to that grant or that request?
I put like 5 different projects on it, Ibrahim, and the one that was related to hydrants, I put 150,000.
Okay. And is the cost of installing a hydrant, is there any round number in terms of the average what it costs? Just out of curiosity.
Not really, no. Most of these hydrants, bear in mind, we haven't had the ability to go and put a hydrant in a location where there's already the sized main necessary to install a hydrant on it. You got to have a 6-inch main or larger, put a hydrant on it.
Okay.
So a lot of the areas, these 10 projects so far, you're looking, and in addition to at least 2 of the remaining 4, you're looking at having to upsize the main. So when you get into that, you're adding a fair amount of cost to these projects.
Okay. That's all I have.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Green.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I have a couple of questions.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Simmons is on the line if you want to ask if he wants to have questions, if he has questions.
Okay. Mr. Simmons, good morning to you. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm not sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh,
We are,
very good.
yeah, we're on the item of the agenda discussing the fire hydrant program, and we have Chief Brad Tadlock and Pete Nardi from PSD joining us. Do you have any questions or comments?
I sort of came in on the tail end of them, but I think I heard her say something. Good morning, guys. Morning, everyone. Something about I know the numbering system, the 911 system, or the numbering seems to have been an issue sometimes as well. So that's something that runs in conjunction with hydrants and water, and I think is that something that runs in conjunction with the project as well? If you understand my question.
Yeah, Mr. Simmons, this is Brad Tadlock. Good morning. Yeah, you're right. As more dwellings are added to property, it brings in addressing questions and challenges in the scheme of following a standardized method that hasn't always been followed throughout the years, going back into the 70s, and not only in the cultural neighborhoods, but throughout the island, we run into challenges as development continues to some degree. But yes, I would give, this is a little off the fire hydrant topic, but just recently up here off Dillon Road on Ferguson Lane, we're running into, there's going to be some homes added, and that's brought up, we evaluated it for the access to the fire hydrant, but it brought up a need for us to go forward and readdress and possibly name some of the access easements so that we can give the home a proper address for 911 services that doesn't have an address way back in the lot that you can't see off Dillon Road. So that gets into public safety, and then of course it also supports home delivery, which is very prevalent in today's society. So proper addressing, certainly from emergency response standpoint, is the highest priority, but it also just creates efficiencies in other areas. And to Mr. Simmons' point, it is a challenge, and sometimes we have to go back and reevaluate the existing structures as we add new structures, and that causes some challenges and some need to change addresses, which is not a pleasant experience, I understand, but we're looking at it in the long term. We've got to fix these issues now, because if more structures are added later, you only come back and have to make people change their address again. So we're looking at it more, how many homes can be added to that area, and looking more to the future. So I hope that answers the question.
Yes, and like you say, it's sort of a different kind of approach to water protection and all, but I asked primarily because I had some issues myself personally with some addressing. Seems like the process, with the addressing seems to not be a very smooth one, especially as you go forward and you see you get more homes and need to protect them and all. I know that process definitely needs some attention as well. Yeah,
I hope, as what we've decided to do in the future, we're getting ahead of it. I know there are going to be cases that pop up similar to yours where it's comes to our attention now that probably should have been addressed in the past, but every time we're made aware of a situation, we're looking at it and we're looking out to say, okay, how do we fix this, fix it right, and ensure that additional structures added later doesn't cause homeowners living there right now to have to change their address. So I hope me and my team have put in processes that'll make it more seamless going forward, and more seamless long after I'm gone. So.
Yeah, for sure. And it really comes to mind as we look more into the family compounds and these kinds of areas where these kinds of development comes about, these rules. That's where it's going to be critical as well. So I just hope that we keep in mind as we move forward on the two main items, or the two items that are for approval, that the addressing part of it is captured as well. This is going to be important. That's my only comment.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Simmons. All right, some of my comments and questions have already been addressed in some of the earlier questions, but I do have a couple to kind of follow up on. The projects that you have completed, can you share with us a little bit about exactly where those areas were or where they are that have been covered here recently?
So hydrants under this program, hydrants have been installed on what we call the Pinefield Mackerel hydrant, Aiken Place, Cobia Court, Horse Sugar Fish Hall, Christopher Drive, Sunday Ford Wild Horse, Blygen, Mustang, Murray Ave, William Drive. And then what's on tap, priority-wise, up first is Orridge, then School Road at Gumtree, and then Indian Pipe and Evelina.
Okay, thank you. Now, have you run into any situation? Well, let me ask about are we still using the letter to owners in that proximity to hold harmless? We had some discussion about that, gosh, a year and a half or so ago. Can you tell me where we are with that particular situation? Are we still using that?
Yeah, we are. The waiver identifies that someone is being allowed to put a home between, the waiver says 500, the code, there's a code that allows up to 600, so I use the term 600 feet. The waiver is to identify that the homeowner is being allowed to add this home to the property, but they're outside the 600 foot from a fire hydrant. And this means typically that it's on their private property, so that there is a hydrant in the area and it's within that 1,000 feet. And we had the discussion a few years ago that we carry 1,000 feet of hose and that we're servicing that area. It's over my career here, we've laid off more than 600 feet many times for many different fires in many different areas, that it doesn't diminish our service level to the community. It just identifies that there's a compromise there, that we're going to allow structures to be added to the property, but they fall outside the strict definition of the fire code.
Have you had any challenges with that as far as folks not wanting to sign that particular waiver, or is it you've had them sign okay?
Yeah, I don't know that everyone's always, they some questions about it, but I think in understanding the ability to place hydrants in general areas, you know, we can't place them specifically on private property for individual owners. You know, that would create a challenge for Pete. So I think they generally understand, and that's why I say we continue to look at development and where there is some additional structures being added. If we can say another hydrant here will cover, you know, the greater good in this area, we'll certainly consider adding them. But that was the document was a compromise to say we're going to allow people to continue to develop and add structures to their property, but they are outside the strict definition of the fire code. But not diminish any of the service level. We're still servicing them that area, the structures, as we would anywhere on it.
Yeah. I know it's hard to predict, but if we continue to put these projects in to have coverage throughout the island, do you think there'll ever come a time when that document will not be needed? I don't know that you want to do away with it, but hopefully we won't have to use it as much because we'll have better coverage.
I think so. That's a good statement, and we're maintaining records. The fire marshal, Johanna Pfister, if a hydrant is added and the homeowners in that area or the landowner signed a waiver, we're going to remove the waiver if they fall within that 600-foot radius, driving distance, not radius. I apologize.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're keeping track of that, and if we can eliminate it, we will from the file, and hopefully we can eliminate it from futures as there continues to be structures added, and sometimes it's development. I use the case of the current one at Indian Pipe. Part of that land was developed into that new housing, and I don't remember the name right now, but so whoever developed that property had to install fire hydrants to protect those homes. But we realized that if we added a hydrant on Squire Pope Road across from Indian Pipe at the entrance, that it would provide service to the back of that property. But yet the hydrant's located in an area that's usable for many different structures. So, that greater good concept of spending the money. So that's kind of, even though there's development that didn't require us, the town, to do anything related to fire hydrants, just that development made us look at Indian Pipe and say, you know what, if we add a hydrant out there, it's going to benefit that parcel of land going to the far back. It may not bring it under 600, but it's going to bring it under 1,000.
Yes.
Does that help?
Yeah, that does help, and I appreciate you doing that or looking at it in a more comprehensive way as you come into these different areas. Yes, probably 2 years ago now, a year and a half ago, when we started these discussions, we had also talked a little bit about some of the fire hydrants that might be situated within the PUDs. Have you been able to, maybe this is a Pete question, have you had any challenges, I guess, if there's a need to access any of those hydrants that are located within a particular development? Has that been an issue or even come up?
I mean, fire rescue, is aware of all the hydrant mapping, and their attack is based on what they access, not as the crow flies. Yeah, I mean, no, not to my knowledge, because that's all part of their everyday work, is knowing which hydrant they go to for which streets. And I think, initially there were, I don't think we ended up with any opportunity that was better. One of the things maybe we had talked about a couple years ago, Levon, was, well, could the PSD go or the town go and create easements or create access to an existing hydrant and thereby not need a hydrant under this program? But as we did GIS, Geographic Information System analysis of of the utility infrastructure and sharing that with the town as they looked at how the fire truck drives, that's how you've arrived at this group of projects. That's the optimal approach. So
yeah, okay. Yeah, that might have been better directed for Chief Tadlock, but
I would, as we look at structures being added, whether it's within a community or whether it's in the North Forest Beach area that's not within the PUD, we're going to evaluate the hydrants island-wide and then make recommendations based on what we see across all three PSDs. So we're certainly focused on the area within Hilton Head PSD because that's been the greatest need, obviously. But over the years, Hilton Head progressing from the 60s to where we are now, we can't say for certain there's not gaps out there in other areas of the community. And as they come up and as we can identify them, we will, following the same general guidelines would be my recommendation.
Yeah. And so are there areas within the PUDs that are outside the 600 feet requirement where you've had to get some waivers signed?
Not that I'm aware of, not that any homes have been requested to be added. That's not to say some won't pop up in the future, but to our knowledge, no, we've not had to approve any applications or permits where they were outside that.
Okay. And that's certainly what we're hoping for in other areas, that we get good coverage and we won't have to have that waiver at some point in the future.
Right.
Okay, those are all my questions and comments, and I just want, before I move on, if any of my other task force colleagues have another question or follow-up. Mr. Malik.
Just wanted to ask, if you have a situation where a homeowner puts a new structure and he falls outside of that range and he's aware of it, can that homeowner request that a hydrant be installed? Is there a process for that?
Well, from the fire, I'll let Pete answer too. From the fire rescue perspective, if he, are you saying outside the 1,000 where we would deny the application?
No, I'm saying outside of what the standard is right now. I mean, the home has been placed, but he's inside the 1,000, and I'm asking if there's an opportunity where that homeowner can request to have a hydrant installed so that he's inside of the 600.
They could request it through fire rescue. We would take it over to Pete because it's a shared government responsibility that we would have to address it with Pete and say, is there a way we can put a hydrant in under the program and maintain within the guidelines of it being for the greater good and not specifically on one individual's private property. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense, but there's no case of that so far.
No. Individuals have signed the waiver, and like I said, we keep track of that, and at some point, if we can add a hydrant, we will, but we've focused on those areas that were the highest priority, and that's, as we finish up these last 4, I think we're going to be in a position in another year to say, okay, let's go back down to those areas between 600 and 1,000. And Pete's given me, his comments have been we should look at those going forward and see what we can continue to do.
Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
And certainly as those properties come within the 600 requirement, 600 feet requirement, then that waiver would go away, wouldn't it?
It does, yes. Yeah, we track that.
Yes.
But I think to the question, any citizen can request a hydrant. Actually, Pete has one right now that's within a community that someone has asked about a hydrant. So I guess there's not a real defined formal process, but anyone's open to ask the PSD or fire rescue about a hydrant, and then we follow up and determine what the request is about. That's island-wide. We sometimes get calls from citizens saying, how far am I from the hydrant and things like that, for most likely for insurance reasons. But I don't know if Pete has a more formal process on his side, since I'll let him speak to that.
Well, probably just important to bear in mind the two different ways that utility infrastructure gets built. If you're developing, the PSD, just like any utility in North America, operates on a growth pays for growth basis. So if you're developing and you're creating new units and you're creating the need for the utility infrastructure, then you pay for it. That is standard. That's how it's always gone. This program that you're in the midst of here is going and saying, hey, we've got existing units, existing homes. Hey, the town has a goal of having a lesser distance between hydrants, and the PSD system is already there. Can we identify areas where we can, make it a PSD funded and town funded project because it's serving existing units? And that is different than I'm taking a piece of raw land and I'm going to develop it. And I'm going to put 10 houses on it or 5 houses or, that typically is the rest of the ratepayers, the rest of the taxpayers don't pay for your utility infrastructure for that project. You as the developer pay for that. And that's kind of key difference between what this program is and what the way typically utility infrastructure gets developed when you're talking about private development.
No, I understand.
So I think
private
everyone
development.
understands that, but I don't, just as a,
Yeah, I understand private development. I was thinking in particular of an individual homeowner, not a developer. I understand the developer, has to pay that right, pay that,
yeah.
do that work. But I got a better understanding of it now.
Yeah.
But I was referring to an individual homeowner, not developers.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's in that case is where fire and rescue is been doing this review to say, okay, we've got where is there a density of existing units that if we place a hydrant, we achieve a smaller distance for multiple existing units. I think this Orange project is a great example of that. It's covered now, but we could do even better by going further up that road because you've got existing units there.
Okay.
Okay. All right. If there are no more questions or comments, thank you, Chief Tadlock and Pete Nardi from PSD for being here with us, and appreciate your work. And we will certainly keep an eye on those developments as we continue to work with this historic overlay district and family compounds and family subdivisions kind of coming online as well in our historic neighborhoods. All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you all.
Okay, the next item we have on our agenda is the genealogy clinic presentation from the executive director from the Heritage Library, Barbara Kendanachi. I'm going to mess up your last name. I apologize. I don't call your name enough. And Linda Pickett, the past executive director from the Heritage Library. And you have a presentation for us. Good morning and welcome, ladies.
Good morning.
Good morning. And if you could, for me and the rest of us, Miss Barbara, pronounce your last name for us.
Actually, you did really well.
Okay.
I am really proud of you, Mr. Stevens. I'm Barbara Catanese. I've been the executive director at Heritage Library now for 2 years. Many of you know Linda, who served in that capacity prior to my coming on board, which is why I asked her to be here today, because this project that we're working through, that we're in the process of trying to develop, is started with Linda. The library's been in conversation with the Center for Heirs property now for about 5 years. And what we've talked to them about is working in the area of heirs property, but in a very kind of siloed way. One of the things that the Heritage Library does is genealogy research. So what we're good at is finding heirs and finding family members. And for some folks, that process in the heirs property process sometimes creates an issue. So if we can work with families and help them identify the legitimate heirs, work through finding a valid deed, and then basically that's all we're looking at doing. Okay, we don't get into the legal end. We don't meet with families to discuss the issue. Our goal is just to make sure that we've got the folks who need to be involved, and that we've got a valid deed for folks. So what we've done like I said, we've talked to the Center for Heirs Property about doing this for a number of years, and then we went to the town and said, from the town's perspective, is this something that we can do with you to help families? But that would be a very small part of that process that we would do. But we have a group of volunteers that are willing to do that family research. And we work with Mary Christopher on the deed validation. Linda, am I missing anything? Jump in.
No, I think that's it. As Barbara mentioned, we spent a lot of time talking with the center in Charleston, and we're gearing our family research piece of the puzzle towards their processes. so that if we can work with someone, what they tell the people that come into them, what they tell them is the first thing you have to do is your family research. And so we'll take that part and help our clients get as broad a picture as we possibly can do of their living relatives. The idea being that we will not charge the client, and what we give them, they can then take. We will give them a package, basically, of everything that we have found and all the proof documents for everything that we found. And they can take that, depending on their qualifications, they can take it to the center, they can take it to their own attorney to move further. We're hoping that what we can do, in talking with Brianna last week, if the client comes into the center and does not have a full picture or does not have the last address of their living relatives, they could end up spending a lot of money doing notifications in newspapers and that kind of thing that goes back to the client. So what we're doing hopefully will help the client even save more money when they do get to the center. So that's the process as far as we've gone.
And the other piece too is that we'd be looking at taking a recommended client. Okay, so someone who was working with the town, working with the center, things like organizations like that, they can refer that client to us then. So it would be on a referral basis. It's not just a matter of someone wandering in and saying, "Hey, I need to do this." We really do want to make sure that what we're working with is the process and doing it correctly for that client.
We also have an agreement with USCB for an office, and we're going to put the center, the Heirs Property Research Center, in that office at USCB, so that it's totally separated from the library. It's neutral ground, and hopefully the clients will feel comfortable going in there to work with us. And the information that we gather for the client will be totally private that way, kept separately from library resources.
Okay. At this time, I would like to open it up to my task force members. If they have any comments or questions, I'm going to follow the discussion order. Ms. McVitie.
Yeah, my question is the cost for this particular service, and my question to the task force is there a fund available, or maybe you ladies know whether there is some kind of public funding available?
Right now, the library is looking at doing this at no cost to the client. We operate on memberships and donations. Obviously, if this grew and we found ourselves needing more office space and things like that, but with our partnership with the town, we're asking the town for some things. We're providing some things. We already have subscriptions to the database, to some of the databases. We will have to add some new things. Obviously, we need a computer, we need a printer, we need those kind of things to furnish the office. But there's a number of, so we're working with the town on that. But the group of folks that will be working with clients are doing this on a volunteer basis. The University of South Carolina, Beaufort at Hilton Head is providing the office space to us free of charge. They're providing us with that connection to the internet free of charge. So we can, obviously we can control those costs. So as long as we can do it at no cost, then we will do it at no cost to the client.
My further question is the need for this additional office. How did you determine that?
What we want, when we're working with clients in the library, we're working in an open workspace.
Okay.
So a lot of times when you're talking about some private legal issues and things like that, you obviously want privacy. So we had the opportunity to have office space at the Hilton Head campus, and kind of said this was a good opportunity for this project in that space because it does provide us with the privacy. We also have access to a conference room at the university, so that if you've got more than 2 people or 3 people in an office, those offices are small. We obviously don't want everyone crammed in. We can actually reserve a conference space and use that conference space with a family.
So I'm understanding that, so if someone came to you, they would call and make an appointment, and you would specifically suggest that they meet you there.
Right.
Okay.
And we would not be in contact with that client unless they were referred from an existing organization, a local attorney that might be working with someone, the town, the Center for Heirs Property, things like that. So we would not, we're not going out and soliciting.
Right.
clients.
I understand that.
Strictly referral.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you so much.
It would be on an appointment basis, and they would be provided. We have Linda, Amanda Hughes, and Grinnell Griffin, who will be working directly with families on research, and Murray Christopher on the deed research.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Ms. McVitie. Mr. Theodore.
Yeah, thank you, Yvonne. Great service. Really appreciate you sharing your progress and how you're developing that program. I was just kind of curious, as you build your database, does that help with future research? A lot of times, does that tie together to other families? And how is all this done? Is it all kind of in computer format where you have the ability to kind of associate information and begin to link families together and things like that?
Well, yes, it is done. We're going to be using probably Family Tree Maker.
Okay.
Put the information together, because then we can run reports, give back to the client along with their proof documentation. As far as linking together, the software is not going to automatically do that. Every family will be treated as an individual family. Now, if the family tells us we're related here, then yes, in the software we could link them together. What we're more concerned about is privacy, and linking families together may not be what the families want. So, we're not, when we're dealing with a client, we're dealing with that client's immediate family, or actually extended family members. So I may have, at working with one client, I may have touched on this family, and another volunteer working on that family may have touched on the one that I am, but we may not even know it unless there is a request to put the families together.
That's all my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Theodore. Mr. Malik.
Yes, just one of the questions I have would be, once you've done your, let's say you've compiled the family tree and you have that information there, who becomes the owner of that information?
The client becomes the owner of that information. That is handed off to the client.
And your library doesn't have any records of it,
No.
okay? And then when you do your research, you go with the descendants and living relatives. Is that how it works?
No, for this research, for deed specific research, the research is going to come forward from the last valid deed holder of that property. So if, for example, if your grandfather had the last valid deed for that property, we're going to take your grandfather and bring him forward, his children, their children, etc. So it'll be living relatives, cousins, etc.
Okay, and then I guess the last question I would have would be, and you're saying that someone has to vouch for a client. So if
Yes.
you want to accept on this program someone coming in, a family coming in and saying we want to do this research, someone has to vouch for them.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
We do family research for folks on a daily basis. But this is a specific program that focuses in on the heirs property issue. And what was kind of that missing link for some folks working through the issue, and can we provide that service? So it's very, very specific to that referral. We're not the starting point for this. We're kind of in the middle in that process.
All right, thank you.
Yes, and if you want to take your grandfather and go backwards into your dead ancestors, we do that at the library every day. It's the privacy of the live descendants that we're concerned about.
Okay. Is that it, Mr.?
Is there a charge associated with that service?
If we're doing research that is outside of the heirs property issue, we do work with folks. Members have access to our databases and our volunteer genealogists. We have a $10 a day library research fee to come in and work with genealogists. We always do a free hour with everyone. We can do private research as well with, where you literally hand us what you have and then our researcher goes off and they're not really in contact with you, coming in and doing the research with us. And we do that private research. There is a charge for it, but we try to keep those fees extremely reasonable so that we can help folks. We do have to keep the lights on. It's an important part of the day. Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Linda.
I was just going to say, if you are interested enough that you want to come in and stick with us and learn how to do your own research and all of that kind of thing, the membership fee is $85 a year for a member.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Malik. Mr. Simmons, are you still on the line?
So there have been some disturbance from my end. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm traveling, so I'm sorry for any disturbances. I guess I want to back up and ask. I think a question came up about cost of money. Did the task force at some point when we started looking at this, we asked for allocation of some money somewhere down prior for such studies? This. I didn't recall.
I'm sorry, can you repeat your question for us?
Yeah, I'm kind of lost.
The task force, when we were organizing the priorities, which was, heirs property, we at one point asked for funds to be available to assist with that. I know the library does it. Going back, I think someone asked about cost.
Right, what we're looking at for cost, what we've asked the town to help us do is furnish that office. So computer, printer, office supplies, those things, that
Some of the
obviously,
software.
some of the software that we might need, on that computer, and so we're working with the town to cover that cost. And of course, that's not, and then, you have ongoing costs of office supplies and maintenance on your computer and things like that, which isn't an alarming cost. But we're working with the town on that initial setup and then the ongoing costs.
Okay.
Okay, I guess that's sort of a roundabout answer to my question. And there's monies available from town to this.
Right.
Um,
And of course, the town would own that equipment.
All right,
Okay.
that was my only relative comment or question.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Simmons. Ms. Green?
Okay, I have a question when it comes to the situation of the package that would be compiling the information. I noticed Ms. Linda said it would be using maybe a program that had to do with Family Tree, but which also brings me back to the question of saving information. So in that package, would that be on a disk? Because my experience with heirs property is that as people pass away, the families are growing. So with that information, will the family be able to then add to that information and add to it to keep it going, to keep on track with the history of the families? Or would this process then start again later on down the line, per se, if my child needs it or if that information is lost? So it kind of concerns me that that information isn't anywhere other than a package, which to me sounds like paperwork and not maybe a disc. I don't know if y'all want me to keep going or if we want to talk about this at this time.
We can look at how that package should be set up. The issue that you're going to have, okay, so if I give you I want you to stop and think about things like kind of in a picture in a package of paperwork, okay? So if you've got a folder that provides you with the information, even if we put that on a disk, you would still need the software program to do anything further with that disk, okay? Now, that doesn't mean that somebody can't go back, look at that information on the software and go forward.
I guess what I'm saying is to look at the larger picture of
Mhm.
how the family would keep that going without having to come back to you, because you stated you would need a referral to come back to you. And if it's
Right.
later down the line, how would we keep this information current and going? It sounds like right when we come to you, you're going to be dealing with that situation at hand. 2 months later, after that, if someone passes away with 3 kids, that's also adding to, you see what I'm saying? It's adding
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
it. So that brings a concern to me. Another question is, as we're going, and if I'm coming to you with that specific family name, let's use my family's name. Let's say the Matthew Tina Jones Project. You said other members would come in order to, I missed that part. How would other family members connect to that? And I guess I'm asking because another situations that they run into is what they call illegitimate kids. So if that case is going on with a client, would that person be able to come in and connect with that case, or do they have to start a separate one linked to that specific family name?
The premise that we're starting with is that the person is vetted before they ever come to us. We are not going to make the decision on who we process. It is going to come from Dr. DeBose, for example, if somebody approaches her. So the requirements that we have is that it is the person who's paying the taxes on the property, and it is a direct descendant of the deed holder.
Okay, so we do know as heirs of property, we do know as heirs, we all pay the taxes, or should we say we all should be paying the taxes?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
are you really saying paying who we're paying, the name that we're paying the taxes in? Because that
Yes.
person could be deceased.
Well, then we'll have to make if that person is deceased, then we'll have to make a determination on who is the next potential descendant.
Yeah, it's not an uncomplicated process by any stretch of the imagination. And we're good at what we do, but we're going to learn a lot through this, because a lot of what we do, we're looking back. This is kind of new to us going forward. So we're going to learn, we're going to have to talk with folks and meet with folks as we go through this to make sure that because hopefully hopefully what we do grows as well, and it works within the communities that we're working in. So we're going to see some change along the way, but when we sat down and started hammering this out among us with especially with Mr. Christopher, he had spent some time with some families, working through this. So really kind of had a set plan, starting with that deed, starting with that person who's on that tax roll, and then going forward from there.
And I like your idea of having it in a format that can be added to once it's turned over to the family. The software issue would be the issue.
Yeah. Because these issues aren't solved. It's not like somebody comes to us, they sit down and they meet with an attorney or whomever, come to us 2 weeks later, and 2 weeks after that, and then they meet with an attorney and this problem's resolved. This is an ongoing issue. So we're going to see some change in families. So we're going to have to sit down and really try to figure out how do we do that. And it might be something very simple, like getting permission to leave the family tree on Family Tree Maker, and providing them with, they can sit in the office and create a login and password, write it down, and leave with it. Now, when that happens, of course, we don't have access. So we'd have to look at, how do we actually set that up?
Do you have a roundabout? I understand that this particular program per referral is free. Do you have a roundabout about cost if someone wants to enter, I guess, the heirs property research before they're in a situation?
Thought about that.
And
in other words, you know that you're going to have heirs property issues, and you want to come in and build your family out, knowing that you're going to have those issues.
Right. And the reason why I'm asking is because we're trying to get the community caught up ahead of time before they're in a situation. And I'm talking from an experience, because by the time you get into the situation where I need a referral for a lawyer or from someone, you're kind of so far down the line that catching up to, even as far as starting with who all we're dealing with, is way down the line. So, in some cases, which is good that it's free, because some people can afford it, but in some cases, it may be where a family has noticed this may have happened to a family next door. So maybe we need to start now. Let's identify who we are. Let's see where their mind is. So we don't end up where they are.
Well, and we actually do, in our initial process, we do actually ask the family to come in with everything they already have.
Okay.
So, on the first visit, we are asking you for anything you already have, and we will build that into that software. and then take it from there. Our purpose is not to we may have to go back and prove some of the things that you know that he was born on this date, but we need to find the birth certificate and that kind of thing, because the attorneys want the proof. And so, you can do that on paper. You can simply say, I know that this person was born here, died here, and that kind of thing. And we're actually in our introductory letter to the client asking for specific information. Please bring us anything you have, names, dates, locations, Bible records, whatever you have that can substantiate the family as you know it now. And then we can take it from there.
Okay.
So, I mean, you can do that whether you're in our software program or not.
Yes, ma'am.
And then,
Yeah, and we'll have to look at, and I don't want a preemptive strike, for lack of a better word, for that family that's basically saying, hey, wait a minute, we might have an issue here. But, we're not talking about at any point charging folks hundreds of dollars or anything like that. What we're trying to do is the best that we possibly can, so that we're a part of giving back to the community. But we'd really have to work through if there was a charge, but we would certainly look to, and it might be one of those things that we could set up a fund within the community foundation to help cover those costs, things like that. So if it became something that was, hey, wait a minute, we've got some, all of a sudden we've got a large number of folks coming to us, how do we handle this? Then it would be coming back to groups like you and saying, okay, here's our situation. Give us our recommendation on moving forward with this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Green. Those are very, very good questions. I have some observations and a couple of questions to follow up with some of the questions that have already been asked. And just for everybody's refresher, I guess, we certainly made this issue with heirs property a part of our mission, this Gullah Geechee Task Force, as a part of cultural preservation. We identified the Heritage Library as one of our resources to help us with that. Through our relationship with the town and certainly the position that we created with Dr. DeBose, we certainly hope that we can be one of the main pools of resources for you. The recommendations that we put together, one of them specifically identifies, again, the Heritage Library as one of the resources that we would use to address heirs properties and the issues that might come up with them. The question I guess I have is, you said that it would be referred, it'd have to be an individual who'd be referred. This may be a question for Dr. DeBose. In the case of Mr. Christopher, is that how this happened? Did he come to the town first and then he was referred to this program at the Heritage Library?
For what I understand, Mr. Christopher is doing the deed research. He also knows which families would probably need this program, and he and I will converse about that. But that's how we would determine, also based on the criteria of if you're paying the taxes on the property, if somebody comes to me, or if you're direct descendant. So we would determine that before referring to the library. But yes, I would be working with Mr. Christopher on that.
And that's how he got started with that, as he was referred from your office to the Heritage Library?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, that's important to know. The other question that I have, and one of the suggestions that we made might be very helpful if you ladies at the Heritage Library be open to one of our task force members working directly with you to help you. And I would identify Ms. Green as a perfect candidate, having firsthand experience at some of the questions and issues that come up that maybe you haven't thought about. Like I say, I thought those were all very, very good questions. And when we, as you know, this is not an easy topic, as you already said. when we get into heirs property, we probably create more questions than we do answers, especially as it relates to people passing on, as well as children being born. So you've got a whole, the family tree is a tree. It grows and some parts of it passes away. So that's something I would strongly suggest to you that you might even entertain a member of this task force to work along with you in this program.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very much.
We'll take all the team members we can get.
Absolutely. And the other thing is about the location and certainly the support and the funds and things like that, because we do understand that, you know, you are providing a service and you need funds to operate. I think there are some resources out there. I know people in the community and some organizations who are looking to help support these kinds of efforts. And again, I think that's why this task force would be a good partnership. It should be a partnership. We should be working very close together because we are very familiar with the people in the community. Most of us, if not all of us, certainly know Mr. Christopher. And so there are some opportunities for some funding to help families who may need it. Again, I understand we're not going out soliciting people to do this, but if they come to you and they need some help and there needs to be some way to pay for it, there are some avenues that I think we can be creative in finding some funding for that. Also, I would mention to Dr. DeBose that at one time, whether you know it or not, in past history, we have actually asked for funds to be attached to our task force to use for different things like these programs. And so that's been a question that has come up over the years, if there is a line item or some funds attached in the budget for this task force. So the process, I think, is very important too, because again, we are in a position to help identify the needs in the community and some of the individuals in the community. The other question, I guess the other question I have is that, have you considered the location of where that office is? USCB is a very nice facility, but we're always asking about having it in the historic neighborhoods area where people are more comfortable or more liable to come. I will say that I think people should go wherever the help is, but is there opportunities to create perhaps like a satellite office, for instance, at a church or some other area on the island, or is it strictly at USCB?
We went to, we had the opportunity, we do a partnership program in providing classes in ancestry research and local history with USC. We work with the OLLI program, and they provide us classroom space. And in that process of developing that agreement, they also offered us office space. And it was kind of like, well, what are we going to use this office for? And then when we went back and looked at what are some of the things that we had coming down the line, Linda had been working with the Center for Heirs Property and said, hey, could we use this for heirs property? So our issue is we have to go somewhere where we can meet privately with a family, have internet access, and set up computers and, safe space for files to be kept. So we can do that anywhere. We're just not, we're not in the position to pay rent to someone because we got to cover our rent here. But, can we have an office besides at USC? Yes, we can. We went basically there because the one thing we know is that we're also going to have really strong internet access there. Because basically everything runs off that state network, which is a lot faster than the network we're using right now.
Yeah, and it may be that you don't need a permanent office somewhere, but I'm sure we can create some programs from time to time in other areas on the island, for example.
No, and like I said, we're not married to USC Beaufort. It's just that we, we have the opportunity to do this program, and that office space was there. So we said, okay, let's make use of that office space. And like I said, the ability to have a conference room, and we may meet with folks, and again, we may have to meet with folks after hours because of the nature of someone's working and things like that. We can't do that when USCB closes. We obviously can't open up that building. So we may be looking at other office space. We can obviously use our offices when the office isn't open. So that folks, because then you have that privacy factor. But yes, having another space to meet with folks, absolutely, it's not an issue. Like I said, we're just not in a position to go and rent an office space.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, I think most of my questions were answered and discussed earlier. And I do thank you ladies for the work that you're doing. And again, Linda Peacutt has a history with this task force and helping us to develop some of these recommendations. And this is definitely a very important issue that we want to address. And so I appreciate you getting this program going. And again, we look forward to a great partnership and being able to support as well as being a resource for you in some way.
Great. Thank you so much.
Okay,
And this is new to us. So talk to us as we get this started so that, because what we don't want to do is get off to a bad start. But we also want this to grow, and we can't do that without you being a part of what we're doing.
Well, thank you for that. Okay, thank you, ladies.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Most of our town council members and staff I know had to jump off. I think there's another town council meeting now. So I missed them, and I probably should have asked a little bit earlier. But Sharice, the next item we have on our agenda is the staff report. I don't know if you have anything else you'd like to share with us, but I would ask you to share or remind us again where we are with the latest developments on the family compound and family subdivision.
Yes, sir. That's actually part of the report.
Okay.
So where we are right now is that family compound and family subdivision will be returning to Planning Commission on June 2nd. And the reason is because family compound and family subdivision added 3 provisions that you have to be within the historic neighborhood. You've had to have owned your property, or the property needed to be in the family since 1956. And the third one that gave a specific definition of family, it makes the application a use with specific condition, with a use with conditions. And so because it's a use with conditions, it has to be updated in the LMO and in other sections. And we did not advertise that. It wasn't advertised because it wasn't a part of what we were doing when we went to Planning Commission the first time. So this means we have to do another public hearing. The good news is it's only a text amendment. So all we need to do is put in a legal ad, which has been put in already. And we don't have to do the letters and the signs that we did before. So this process should move along pretty quickly. So where we are right now is that we have Planning Commission the morning of June 2nd. Then we will have PPC on that same day, the afternoon, June 2nd. We'll do Town Council for a revised first reading on June 15th and a Town Council second reading on July 20th. And as we go along, I will keep the task force updated with the progress. That's for that first part of the staff report. And I have 2 other items. I don't know if you want me to go through them or if you have questions about this.
Anyone have any questions about the family compound and family subdivision? Okay, thank you. No, please continue.
Okay, the second item, there's been discussion about honoring Native Islanders by giving the developers the option to use historic street names from a generated list. So right now what staff is doing is asking the task force for direction in terms of deciding where the list is generated from. If you want to provide the list yourself based on certain criteria, or if this should be brought to the community for their input. And the criteria that you would have to follow is that the names would need to be easy to pronounce, and you can't have duplicates. That's an example of criteria. But what I'm asking is if the task force wants to generate a list of names, or if you want to open it up for the community to do.
Okay.
And finally, the April delinquent tax list has been sent. And the good news is that only one property is delinquent. And that name has already been provided to Ms. White to just keep an eye on to see if the property owners are able to pay the taxes for this year. But thank you for your hard work in seeing that all the Native Islanders understand the importance of being on time with their taxes. So basically, that is the update I have at this time.
Excuse me, and have you shared the tax information with us?
I shared it with Ms. White. It's only one name on there.
Oh, okay. As you know, over the last 2 or 3 years, we've had a pretty robust effort in the community with some of the citizens and helping people be aware of that. And so that is good news that there's only the one name. We'll keep trying to work toward that, and hopefully we'll keep having some success with addressing taxes as well as heirs property and some of the other issues we discussed today. Does anyone have any questions for Dr. DeBose? Okay. Well, hearing none, I'm not going to go through the roll call as we have been doing before. If we don't have any questions, the time has been well spent, and thank you all for your time and your energy and your questions and your support. The last thing that I would mention to those of us here is that next month, June, it will be my last month on the Planning Commission. Therefore, it will be my last month as the chairman of the task force. So I hope that this task force will continue to be in place and will continue to work, and I will certainly be available even beyond that to support from a distance. But again, thank you all for your support and the hard work that we put in over the last 3 to 4 years. And with the development of this family compound and family subdivision, I believe is going to be a great accomplishment. Hopefully it's something that will continue with some of the other recommendations that we're working on. And I'm not sure that we've ever gotten this far before historically from what I hear from some of the elders in the community. So again, thank you for being a part of that. And I look forward to seeing you all the next time. If there are no other questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. McVitie. And I'm sure there must be a second somewhere, and we find ourselves now adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Dr. DeBose.